Lightsabers are one of the most iconic weapons in the galaxy far, far away. They're beautiful, they're deadly, and yes, they're a little bit gay. It's true. The color of a lightsaber can tell you a lot about its owner and what they stand for. So today, we're going over why every Star Wars fan needs to know the meaning of lightsaber colors. This is Star Wars Explained. And today, we're talking about lightsaber colors. Now, if you're a casual fan of Star Wars, or you just like to watch the movies once in a while, you might not think that there's too much to say about a lightsaber color. You know, it's either red and therefore evil, or blue and therefore good. But really, it's a little more nuanced than that. So let's get into it. Let's start with the most basic colors. Blue and green lightsabers are pretty common in the Star Wars universe. And in general, the difference between them signifies the difference between the two main types of Jedi, the Guardians and the Consulars. Blue lightsabers represent the Jedi Guardians. These Jedi were trained to be warriors first and foremost. Their combat style was aggressive and headstrong, and they used their lightsabers to carve through enemy battle lines and protect those who could and protect themselves. This doesn't mean that all Jedi Guardians had blue lightsabers, but blue was certainly the dominant color for this type of Jedi. Green lightsabers represented the Jedi Consulars, a type of Jedi who focused on diplomacy and negotiation. Green lightsabers were usually held by Jedi who favored a lightsaber combat form that was fluid and evasive. They weren't as aggressive as the Guardians, but no less effective. While a green lightsaber may have been the most common color for Consulars, they certainly weren't all green. A notable exception is Yoda, who used a green lightsaber despite being neither a Guardian nor a Consular, but rather a member of an ancient and mysterious group known as the Wills. Now, obviously, we also have to talk about the most feared color of all, red. If you see someone wielding a red lightsaber, then you know you're dealing with a Sith. That's because the Sith were the only ones who could create red lightsabers naturally. It has to do with where they got their crystals. You see, in order to build a lightsaber, you need a kyber crystal, which is basically a highly concentrated source of the Force that can be manipulated by a Force user to become sentient and grow in power. Now, the Jedi and the Sith both got their crystals from the same place. However, the Sith would corrupt the crystals to the dark side, twisting them to become red. This was what gave Sith lightsabers their signature blood-colored glow. In recent years, however, we've seen other Force users wield red lightsabers who aren't exactly Sith. Take Cal Kestis from the video game Fallen Order, for example, or the Inquisitors from the animated series Rebels. Both wield red lightsabers, despite not actually being Sith. That's because their crystals were harvested under duress, which made them unable to be purified by the Jedi. Therefore, the kyber crystal remained corrupted to the dark side and appeared red. Also, if a Jedi somehow becomes a Sith, like Anakin Skywalker, their lightsaber will turn red when they cross to the dark side. That's why Darth Vader's lightsaber was once blue, but became red after he left the Jedi Order. But that's not all. There's actually another color that can indicate a Force user's alignment with the dark side of the Force, purple. Purple lightsabers appear to be extremely rare, so much so that only a handful of Jedi are ever shown wielding one. But why? Well, according to legend, purple lightsabers are created by kyber crystals that are struck by lightning during a storm on the planet Elam, a traditional site of Jedi lightsaber meditations. The energy of the lightning corrupts the crystal to the dark side, but not completely. Instead, they become a balance between light and dark, representing the Force user who wields it. Of course, the most famous purple lightsaber was wielded by Mace Windu, one of the most powerful Jedi in the Old Republic era. His fighting style, Vapid, was literally based on controlling the dark side of the Force and using it against its own wielder. So his purple lightsaber was a perfect representation of his abilities. Another purple lightsaber was wielded by the Night Sisters, a cult of dark side witches on Dathomir. Their lightsabers were similar to the Sith double-bladed lightsabers, but instead of being ignited with a switch, they were ignited with a flick of the wrist. But the most interesting thing about their lightsabers is how they were actually able to keep them purple. You see, in canon, Nightsister lightsabers don't have kyber crystals at all. Instead, they use synthetic energy sources that can mimic the appearance of a lightsaber blade. How they manage to make their blades purple is unknown. Speaking of purple, there's one more color I want to discuss that falls in a similar category: white. White lightsabers have always been tricky to explain, mostly because they haven't appeared all that often in official Star Wars media. As far as we can tell, white lightsabers are generally a symbol of neutrality. They don't represent the Jedi, the Sith, or any other Force-using organization. Some Force users who have wielded white lightsabers include Exar Kun, a fallen Jedi who became a Sith Lord; Aayla Secura, a Twi'lek Jedi Master; and most famously, Ahsoka Tano, who built her second lightsaber after leaving the Jedi Order. In the case of Ahsoka, her white lightsabers were actually more accurately described as Vashta, since she built them out of the remains of her old blue and green lightsabers. Regardless, her white lightsabers represent her independence from the Jedi Order and her decision to forge her own path in the galaxy. In fact, there's another type of lightsaber that fits into this category as well, and that's yellow. Yellow lightsabers are usually wielded by members of the Galactic Republic's peacekeeping force known as the Senate Guard. These lightsabers were designed to be highly effective against droids, which is why they emitted a bright, searing yellow blade that could burn through metal like butter. But one of the coolest things about these lightsabers is how they're ignited. Instead of using a traditional ignition switch, Senate Guard lightsabers used a magnetic clasp. But wait, there's even more. Black lightsabers have appeared a few times throughout various Star Wars stories, usually as a way to symbolize the absence of the Force. For example, Darth Plagueis, the Sith Lord who trained Darth Sidious, was rumored to have wielded a black lightsaber. He was a master of the dark side who could manipulate midi-chlorians to create life. Therefore, he was essentially a living embodiment of the dark side, and his lightsaber reflected that. Similarly, the fallen Jedi Exar Kun used a black lightsaber after turning to the dark side, which symbolized his complete rejection of the light side. Even in the world of Star Wars legends, there was a Sith Lord named Darth Nihilus, who fed off the Force. Nihilus's lightsaber was literally a manifestation of the dark side itself, and was capable of draining entire planets of their Force energy. He was so consumed by the dark side that his lightsaber was eventually corrupted, becoming permanently black. And finally, let's talk about silver. Silver lightsabers are incredibly rare, and we've only ever seen one in official Star Wars media. It belonged to the character Jin, an ancient and incredibly powerful Jedi Master from the planet Tython. Jin was one of the first Force users to ever discover the dark side of the Force, which is why he was given a lightsaber blade that symbolized the duality of the Force, light and dark. And that's it. Those are all the major lightsaber colors and what they mean. I didn't get a chance to talk about orange lightsabers, but honestly, there's not much to say about them. They're just kind of like the cool kid who nobody paid attention to. But if you guys want me to do a follow-up episode just on lightsaber colors that I missed, let me know in the comments. But now I want to hear from you guys. What's your favorite lightsaber color and why? And if you could have any color lightsaber, what would you choose? I personally am a sucker for the classics, so I'm gonna have to go with blue. It just represents everything that I love about the Jedi Order, courage, selflessness, and justice. But that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And as always, thanks for watching. This is your host. And may the Force be with you